topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
To Triversity Talk. I'm Wendy Stewart, and I am so happy to be here with all of you tonight. It's Wendy on Wednesday, as I like to say. I just have to share something with all of you. Last night, I went to an amazing reading and presentation about drag in the LGBTQ Center on 13th Street in the city. And the person who was speaking is Alyssa Goodman. She actually, I have to tell you, I've read lots of books on drag. This is the most comprehensive historical book on drag. It's called Glitter and Concrete. It was done by Alyssa Goodman. And what really impressed me about her, maybe she's like 33, 34 years old. And originally the book was 600 pages. She got it down to 400 pages. I don't know how she knew of all the people like that I came up with, or that a lot of you came up with, the clubs, the people. And, it was actually the stories. It's a very academic book. And for people that really want to know more about drag, I have to give a shout out. You have to get it, Glitter and Concrete, and you'll, of course, recognize tons of the personalities in there. So you can probably tell I'm on a roll with authors. And one of the coolest things about Triversity, we've added in some new things. We now have a game night, but we also have a book club, right? And I don't have a lot of time to read, although I do have to read because I have 2 podcasts and I have authors on my shows. But this particular author that's going to be here tonight, I heard that he was going to be affiliated with the book club, that they were reading his book. And when I heard what it was about, I was like chomping at the bit. I said to myself, oh my God, I absolutely have to have him on Triversity Talk. So our tonight is going to be Patrick Field. The book we're going to be talking about is Servant, but he's written more than a few books, okay? This is his latest book, and it was inspired by true supernatural events that happened to the author and his husband in this historical house that they bought. And in some way, the Lenape Indians are woven into this story. I mean, it is a novel, right? But it's based on true events. And you know what, the amount of storytelling in this is just so incredible, and the impact that a story like this has going back in history on modern day novels. You know what? I'm just going to let my guests take it away. Please welcome Patrick Field.
Thank you for having me, Wendy. Thank you so much.
It's so great to have you here. Now, are you in your historic home right now?
I am, and I'm actually in the room that has the most activity in the house.
I asked you that. I've never asked a guest that, okay? I had a reason for asking you that because I can feel that particular room. You know, I'm Scotch-Irish. My grandmother supported herself by reading tea leaves when she came to this country. And my mother would know when someone passed away, she'd have premonitions, right? So when I heard that, first of all, you have a background in neuroscience?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a degree. I have a PhD in neuroscience.
PhD in neuroscience, and yet you're applying this to the paranormal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So nobody's doing this, okay? You're one of a kind. So how did all this come about for you?
So this particular book in particular, this is a culmination of sightings of actual audio. We've heard the spirit before, and we call it spirit because I have friends who are mediums, and that's what they refer to it as spirit, not the spirit, but as spirit.
Now, did your friends who are mediums? So I've worked with EVC, the electronic voice recordings. Did you use that in your house?
No, we haven't. And actually, there's been quite a few people that have volunteered to actually try and drive out our spirit. We're like, absolutely not. That's what makes it so interesting here, Well,
I got to tell you something. I think the vibe I'm getting, your spirit is protecting the both of you who live there.
Yeah,
no matter what before, you have that protection. You don't want to drive that spirit out.
No, and that's very important. And when I talk to the mediums, they're like, ghosts get a very bad rap. The people think that they're evil. They are not evil. They're just like they were when they won the earth. Our particular spirit is very mischievous, likes to play tricks with us all the time. It's just, and I will tell you, when I do write the sequel to Servant, and I will be writing a sequel to it at some point. It's going to be more from one of the characters named Gladys. She's the medium in Servant.
You like her. You have a fondness for Gladys.
I love her. She's my favorite character. Yeah, absolutely. And I will be utilizing the things that have happened since I wrote Servant in terms of the things that have happened in this house, and especially in this room that I'm in right now, and that will build on to the sightings and the physical sightings, as well as the audio, as well as the things that this spirit likes to play with, loves to hide things from us all the time.
Like what kind? Yeah, I was going to ask you. You said the spirit loves to play tricks. What kind of tricks?
So the latest was, you'll love this. I'm going to try and condense as much as I can. So we were going to an event here in our community, and I was putting together, it was a BYOB. I put together this, this bag with all of our beers, and I specifically put the can opener in there. Now, it's not a very fancy one. It's just a plain metal, church key. Put it in there, knowing that I put it in there. And when we got to the event, sure enough, it's gone. I don't know where it is. So the thing is, when things happen in this house, we have to first first, as the neuroscientist, as the scientist, I have to do the logical, right? It's like, okay, so what happened? Well, obviously the can opener fell out somehow, or the bottle opener fell out somewhere. Right. Okay, so it could, on the travel there, it wasn't there when we were there. I checked in the car, I checked around the car. No, it's gone. And again, it's not expensive. It's not something that it was like, an heirloom of any sort. So I didn't think about it. So we get back, and I go back to where the actual bag was. I looked again. I looked around the kitchen island, looked on the floor, just because, something that we use on our boat. So I was like, 3 days later, I come home, and there it is, sitting on top of the island. Wow. And I say to my husband, oh, you found the can opener, or you found the bottle opener. And he's like, guess where I found it? And I was like, okay, where did you find it? Upstairs in our bedroom, underneath the dresser.
Wow. And the only way it could have gotten up there is it was put up there.
I tried to Wendy, I tried to think of everything. Okay, well, maybe here's how crazy it would have to been. Somehow the bottle opener slides out of the bag into my pocket. Then I go upstairs, and then as I'm taking my pants off, or whatever it was I was wearing, then it bounced down and was on the floor. But the problem with that is, how does it get underneath of the dresser?
Well, I'm not buying any of that logic. I'm not buying it from like when it slid into your pocket. I mean, but that's so incredible. Yeah. Okay. Well, what is the age of your house?
So the house is not that old. That's what makes it so interesting. It's only about 40 or 50 years old.
But it's on old land. It's on Lenape property.
It is. We live on a glacial lake. And so when this all started happening, I did my research to make sure there had been nobody that died in this house. Nobody died in this house.
Yeah, right. I always do that, right?
Yeah, but I had to find out where could this spirit be? So then I started doing some research or talking. I said, well, the Lenape were very prevalent in this area. And this is a glacial lake. This is not a man-made lake. So this lake has been around for hundreds of thousands of years, if not a million. So obviously this would be, to me, that was like, well, that's the answer. It's got to be something. There's got to be a burial ground around here. There's got to be some sort of connection, because it's really interesting. The spirit also doesn't understand modern sort of like, technology. It plays with things that it doesn't understand. And I think it's like trying to learn something. For example, in this room that we have right now, over here on the wall, we have a dial on the wall that controls the heat in this room. And one day, I'm not kidding, in the middle of September, I came in here and it was full blast. The heat was on in here. And I was like, I asked my husband right away, I said, why did you turn the heat on in the room? It's like 80 degrees outside, or 70 degrees, whatever. He's like, I didn't turn it on. And I was like, so yeah, just things like that, but
also I think the spirit is, even though it doesn't understand technology, is using ways to like reach out to you and say, hey, it's me. I'm here, which is kind of cool, because I love that you have respect, first of all, for this entity that you're sharing your home with. Yeah.
And the thing is, and you see, I'm referring to him as he, because my husband and Matt and myself have both seen the shadow. And that was a really interesting conversation one morning at breakfast. I was like, so I want to tell you about something that I saw in the bathroom. And I was like, what? And then when he said it, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's very tall. And broad shoulders. I mean, it's very much a masculine sort of shadow that we see.
Silhouette.
And actually, Matt heard him talk to him one day when he was walking up the stairs. He just walked up the stairs one day, and out of nowhere, the spirit said hello, and it was a male voice. So it was like, so it's very much so. We refer to him as Henry. So whenever we have anything happen, it's always like. So let me tell you what Henry did today. Another one was, we were both in the kitchen and I was drying dishes. Matt was at the closet underneath of the stairwell, and I look around, I look at him, and he's got this expression on his face, and I said, "What's up?" And he's like, "Did you just tap me on the shoulder?" And I was like, "No, I'm over here drying dishes." And he's like, "Wow, Henry." And again, you never know when he's going to make his presence, but getting back to the whole thing with the Lenape, it was like, I didn't know where else it could be. There's nobody that died here, but there is clearly a spirit here. And so that is what, and that was the germ that I used to be able to bring the Lenape into the novel.
For the novel. I'm also wondering though, before your house, all right, because it's not super old, were you able to get like historical documents to see what was exactly where your house was?
Well, I know that this actually, there was before this, there's nothing here. There was nothing here. There's nothing ever been built here in terms of our modern architecture. The neighborhood that I live in, there's a few homes that were here privately before the community was established. But in terms of research, I have not done research, but I have found artifacts here on the property. I have found something that looked something along the lines of, it wasn't an arrowhead, but it was something like, it looked like like something like on an axe.
Yeah, like a tool, right?
Yeah, like a tool of some sort. I found that down by where you expect it to be, down by the lake edge. And so it's kind of like, it just was like, my other choice, and this was not the choice that I was hoping, and I was like, no, I don't want to hear about this, is that, a lot of times people will tell us that the lakes out here in Pennsylvania were the common dumping grounds for, the mob, and they kills the bodies out here. Well, that's not where I didn't want to go with a, spirit of a, some kind of a, assassinated gangster. That was not where I wanted to go.
Novel, Patrick.
Completely different novel.
Right.
And I don't think that spirit would be quite as it wouldn't be doing the same thing. Again, the Henry is very obsessed with like modern things. We had another thing. We had a candle. You'll love this. We got a pillar candle. It's a fake pillar candle. It's an electric pillar candle, very large. We could not get it to work. And then finally one day, for whatever reason, turned it on. Great. Well, when that night when we were ready to go out and we left it in the porch and we were ready to go in, tried to turn it off. Would not turn off. Okay, so we tried everything. That candle burned night and day, 24/7 for 3 months straight.
You couldn't get it off no matter what you did.
No, and there's no way a battery would ever last that long. I mean, it was on, and we would actually every night we would go and check out on the porch. Oh yeah, it's still on.
That is just really so incredible. Some of the things that you're bringing up here. I'm curious. We have a great internet connection. You're well lit. I haven't seen a flicker or anything. Has Henry tried to interfere when you're online or anything like that? Because often there's a place I broadcast another show out of that's really haunted. It's in the city. It's Pangea. And there's all kinds of, some days, weird electrical stuff happens.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what he did tonight, or I don't know if this is true or not. So you said to get on here at 6:50. I walked in here. I've been here for a while, and my phone is right next to me, and it just lit up at 6:50 for no reason. Like I didn't touch it. It just lit up and said 6:50. Was almost like it was saying,
"Thank you, Henry."
Exactly. It's like Henry said, "You need to be here at 6:50. This is when this gets started."
Right. Wow. This is also incredible to me, Patrick, because first of all, the trajectory of your career. You are a PhD in neuroscience.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yet this parallel with the paranormal exists. Has this always been a part of you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I since I was a kid, I've been just fascinated with the paranormal. Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Scooby-Doo, and I grew up, with the Addams Family and the Munsters and all of that, all of that sort of like the genre. Bewitched, I love that. Bewitched is very much the germ also for the novel that's coming out, that I have coming out this summer, called The Bedfordshire Warlock. So in that one, it's like actually a reviewer that did a review for me said, based on, he got to read it, and he says, you would think that I was a warlock at one time in my existence, somewhere in one of my past lives. I know too much about it.
You have to think, like, the family you grew up in, was anyone else oriented towards this?
I don't think so. I mean, it was we were a conservative family, but it wasn't like, like overly conservative in any way, shape, or form. But no, they were always sort of just like, they were always like, well, Patrick, like my grandmother asked me one time, she said, well, what's your favorite holiday? Like she asked me that one time, and she was thinking, oh, I was going to say Easter or Christmas or, Halloween.
Or the Day of the Dead.
Or Day of the Dead. And when I learned all about that, actually, when I learned about Day of the Dead, when we actually lived in Manhattan for 12 years. When I learned about Day of the Dead, I was like, okay, we have to go. And we went over to the Barrio Museum, because they have
that's a great museum
there. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, anything involving sort of the afterlife has always been so fascinating to me. Without getting too much into the sort of the devil worship and all the devil stuff. Yeah, that freaks me out. Yeah, the whole thing.
It's ironic because before you came on tonight, I had a hospice nurse who's got another book coming out, because she is there when people transition, right?
Yeah.
And we got into this conversation because I went on my phone, and my husband, I recently lost him, and she had kind of been a shoulder for me to cry on while I was going through all of this. I looked on my phone, and I see that she had left a message for me on March 19th, and I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. So I called her tonight. I said, why did you call me on March 19th, Marie? And she said, well, that's when it happened, right? There's no way she could have known this. I said, that's when Ellen passed. Yeah, it was March 19th.
Wow. I'm so sorry for your loss, by the way.
Well, thank you. But, I'm a big believer in the afterlife. And I don't care who's listening who thinks that you and I are viable, because I've spent a lot of time in Africa, and I know that these things exist.
Yeah.
And I love that you're, as a scientist, I love that you're embracing it, because I meet very few scientists, especially with being a member of the Explorers Club, that can even wrap their heads around this stuff.
Well, and it's interesting you bring the neuroscience part up, because there's actually a huge part of our brain that we don't understand what it does.
Right.
We don't understand what it does. Like there's lots of places you can map the brain and find like, oh wow, this is the area for motor control, and this is the area for speech, and this is the area for sensory control, and also in terms of the higher functions, like in terms of where memory is or where. But there are areas of the brain that we have no idea what they do, and
how can we, deny in this afterlife? My husband the last week and a half was seeing people that he used to know that had crossed over.
Yeah.
All right. And it was absolutely incredible to me. And I think we need, as a society, right, to pay more attention to things like this. And I guess, you're like the sacrificial lamb. You're the scientist that's saying, I know. And the minute I heard about you, I'm like, oh my God, he has to be on the show, because you're the one, you have all the credibility from science. You were for what, 21 years?
I taught for 26 years.
26 years. So you've got that. You are credibility sitting right in front of me. And yet you've chosen to not only acknowledge this path, you're writing about it in a novel, but you're actually writing about it from a basis of fact. And there's not a lot of people doing that, Patrick. So you are your own breed.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I think when people that start reading my books when the next one comes out, and I just actually sent my the third one to my editor, and she's looking at that right now. So I'm kind of rolling all this stuff out, but a lot of, like you're saying, like my neuroscience and my anatomical background definitely makes its foray into everything. All of my human characters in all of my books absolutely are bound by the natural laws. It never ever goes outside of those parameters ever.
Well, that's the scientist, yeah.
And that's the scientist in me. I can't, when you have a human interaction with I'm not gonna have anything like supernatural unless the person possesses supernatural powers. Then that's where my world comes in. That's when I get to create the world that I want to for those characters. Right. And so, but if you have two human characters, like for example, like Gladys and Mitch and Buck and Servant, when they're interacting with each other, it is absolutely bound by natural law. There's nothing that is going on. There's no such thing as alternative facts, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
totally. Yeah. And it's interesting that Patrick, who was this kid who loved the supernatural, but went on to become a neuroscientist, has never left this part of him behind and has incorporated it as a writer.
Exactly.
And then you incorporate an LGBTQ character in the book.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very important for me. We go back to what we just talked about a minute ago, like with Scooby-Doo and all that. As a gay man growing up, there were no role models for me, like in terms of this. I would put myself like into some of these cartoons or some of these movies, or I used to love to watch Christopher Lee and Dracula. I would put myself like, okay, so this is where, what if this was a same-sex attraction kind of thing, or whatever. And so it's very important for me that all of my characters, all of my protagonists in every single book that I've written are LGBTQ. Or they're questioning. Questioning.
Right.
But, so what my copy editor told me one time, she says, you have established a niche that nobody else has ever done this before.
No, I'm telling you, because I was at the LGBTQ Center on 13th Street last night for this reading, and the room was surrounded in LGBTQ books. Authors, some of them I've had on here. There was not one book there that dealt with this genre. You're going into a whole brave new world here, which is so fabulous, really.
Well, thank you. And I think it's important because I think it's when I'm writing from my perspective, when I'm writing from the queer perspective on things, it's like, okay, I'm taking some of the, I wouldn't say the tropes, but they are kind of like in terms of the way that we have learned literature that is part of this genre. I'm taking those tropes and I'm putting it from the queer perspective in the sense like, well, this is the way that a gay man would see this. This is how a gay man would interact with this when he was confronted with this supernatural. And for example, like in Servant, it turns out, when Mitch and Buck, the married couple that encountered this spirit, Jedediah, they're like trying to understand what's going on with him. Why can't he cross over into the afterlife? And as they delve deeper into who he was and what his life was, it becomes very apparent to them there's a reason why he is connecting with them specifically.
Right.
Why Jedediah is connecting with Mitch and Buck specifically. And he's never connected with anybody since his, and again, he's disappeared, so you don't know what's happened. You presume that he's dead. Well, obviously, when his spirit shows up, that he is.
Yeah, that's a dead giveaway. Oh, pardon the pun.
I haven't given anything away because it's like right in the blurb of the back of the book.
I know. And I love, your whole synopsis and everything that you sent. Usually I have enough time where I can at least skim through someone's book. I didn't even get the chance to do that on this, but what you sent was so concise from the get-go. It's like you pulled me in. I can't wait to read your book.
Well, I will tell you, most people say that it is a quick read because they can't put it down. And I was like, that as the author is one of the most, like, that's the biggest compliment you can give me. It's like, I literally have people from my church that said, they said, I could not put the book down. My husband was telling me, you need to come to bed now, or you need to do this. And I couldn't stop reading it. So, yeah.
Well, there were some nice quotes I took from Amazon, which of course I can't find now that I'm looking for them. But I usually read history or hard sci-fi, but I wasn't so sure about a ghost story. The plot flows easily and remains interesting. The characters presented well are interesting and believable. This book was a welcome, easy read. Or the author's ability to use highly descriptive details to bring the reader into each scenario as if physically present. At times you can almost smell the food cooking as well as the fall leaves. The characters are true to life. And that's person wrote captivating page turner. I mean, come on, that's enough for me.
Someone told me, they said that it was the perfect read for a long plane ride. They said you could read this in a long plane ride if you wanted to, which again, that to me is like, as a reader myself, when I'm reading something, I want to be able to like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? And another part of this also for me, because we're being, raised on television, being a latchkey child, my mother was someone who had a career way before women at her time were ever supposed to have a career.
What did she do? What did your mother do?
My mother was a physicist.
Oh my God, I can't take it. I could barely make it through medical course. I had to become an anthropology major.
She was a physicist.
We all have brains by osmosis.
But she was a physicist for the Department of Navy. But it was interesting because being at home and seeing all these things, it was one of these things like it's hard to explain, but I just felt like when I would start going through go through the motions of all of these, things with my books and stuff like that, it was like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to write. I mean, I'm like, and also because I watched so much television, and I was like, the cliffhangers, everything has a cliffhanger. If you read my book, every chapter has a little cliffhanger at the end of it. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, we got to see what's going to happen next. And again, that's being from episodic television. But, but at the same time, I don't ever think myself as being a screenwriter. When I
was reading about all your books and letting my mind go, they certainly have a really great potential. And the fact that you're using LGBTQ characters, I think one of the first films I've seen, what is his name? M. Night Shyamalan. I never say it.
Yeah.
Knock at the Cabin Door.
Yes.
I'm like, good for you.
Absolutely. It's kind of tragic what happens in the movie, but it's. But
you know what? I got to tell you, Patrick, that was really a great movie. It was. I'm a horror fiction and supernatural aficionado. I really love that movie, and kudos to him. He had same-sex couple in the film. Who had adopted a little girl, right? So using modern day scenarios in a horror film, people just aren't doing that. I saw a great Not that I'm a screenwriter, but I see great potential.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of my friends who have read it, they said, so I'm ready to do the audiobook for you.
That's so funny.
They're like, again, yeah, and a lot of my friends are actors, so
Right.
they're, because I tread the boards. I still do occasionally, but that's just part of, kind of being able to get out of yourself and be able to be another character. So and that's what I do now. Instead of being on the stage so much, now I get to play with characters in terms of creating them,
Oh my God, it's great. Right.
Yeah.
And that is not that far from directing them on stage. So I think that I can see that coming down the pike for you in the future. I really can. It really blends nicely with what you're doing. Now, your first book was Prince Patrick.
That was a memoir that I wrote. I started off because I was a very precocious child. That's a nice euphemism.
Yeah, it was precocious. Patrick was a handful. Well, you were so damn smart.
Well, and that was the thing, as a kid, I used to be I never ever was mean or mischievous. It was I was just curious about things. So when I would do things to creatures, for example, why would I pull off the wings off of of bugs? It wasn't about I was trying to kill them. It's I wanted to see what they did as a result of
Right. That is a certain kind of kid.
Exactly. So all these stories were talked about me all the time. Every time we would get together for a family event, it just never ever. It always came up. Oh my God, the time that Patrick was in church and the time when the preacher came down and he said out loud, said, "Is that God?" Or when he heard Holy Ghost, that he started talking about Casper. I mean, it was I was that kind of kid. So I started writing just these things that my stories that were from my childhood. Some were very good. Some of them were I don't know if I want to have a kid after this. I'm the dedication actually in the beginning of the book is I dedicated to my mother. I said, I can't believe you wanted to have another child after you had Prince Patrick. Why would anybody?
Yeah, right. That you went for it again.
So I was writing it, and then something really tragic happened. My mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
I did read that.
Yeah. And so then it was really important for me to get that finished
the memoir
for her so that she was able, and she read it while she was getting her chemotherapy. So, that was not the original reason why I started writing it, but
look at what happened and what an amazing gift that you were able to give to your mother.
Yeah. And everybody in the family, and it was self-published. It wasn't something that I didn't try to publish. I just wanted to get it done so that she would have it for her to be able to read. And it was a family effort. My niece was the one who put together the book cover. I mean, she worked for Vogue at one time in the city. I mean, she's very, very talented graphic artist. So everybody came together to try and make this so that my mother had this for it. So that was sort of, and I also said, interestingly enough, I said, I based this a lot on Harper Lee. Harper Lee wrote one book, To Kill a Mockingbird. And I said to myself at the time, I said, if this is the only book that I ever write, ever, then I'm okay with that. This will be it. And then, I don't know, something happened. I was I had all these stories in my head, and I was like, no, I think I need to write more. And so it was really a fluke. I never saw myself, Wendy, ever doing this as kind of my post sort of teaching career kind of thing. I never saw it.
You had stories in your head while you were teaching. Were you writing them down, or they stayed in your head?
They just stayed in my head. And it was, and I will tell you, here's another thing. I feel like, and I've talked to this about with some of my friends and with these mediums that I've had. I was I get these stories that come in dreams, and it's not it's a dream that will take the entire night. And whether I get up to whatever, use a restroom or whatever like that, as soon as I go back to sleep, it continues. It pops right back in. It's almost like something wants me to tell these stories. And so,
dream continuity, because I have dreams big time. It's rare that it has dream continuity. If I get up for any reason, I'll try and hang on to it consciously and try and get back and grab it again. And it has happened a number of times, but it's not the norm. Usually when you get up, it breaks the dream.
Yeah.
In your case, supposed to be the story that you're supposed to be telling.
Exactly. And you probably also read that when I'm writing a book and I'm writing a chapter, the way that I sort of envision my chapters is that I will take my dogs for a walk. And that is incredibly peaceful. And there's no stimuli because I'm just walking the dogs. And I literally will start putting together the entire chapter in my head about where it's going with the plot. I know what the end is going to be most of the time, although that's not always true. But how do I get there? And so when I finish with the walk, I rush to my computer and I bang out the outline of it. And then I use that to be able to elaborate on it eventually and grow more.
It's interesting to me that you called it walking meditation, because
Yes.
meditation is supposed to be in one spot with one focus. You're out with your dogs and you do a walking meditation, and then you run back and you pen it. You write it all down when you get back.
Exactly.
I had made a note to myself, ask about this process. It's really very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that, and the reason why I bring that up is because I kind of think that when I'm in that sort of meditative state, like when I'm just like with the only stimuli that I have is, what's around me in nature, which is, it's all natural. And the dogs are, for the most part, are really good. I don't have to do too much with them. I feel like that's sort of connected to the dream thing that I have at night, when I'm sleeping. It's like there is some sort of force that comes into me when I'm without any kind of stimuli around me that could be distracting and puts these ideas in my head. I really feel like I'm sort of like, I'm a transistor, if you will, for something. Maybe I'm the translator of somebody or something is trying to get these stories out. And it's important in terms of like what one of the mediums, one of the psychics that I've talked to said, and I asked her, I said, so what do you see for me? She says, oh, I see you're very much like me. You are here to enlighten.
Right.
And I was like, wow, I never thought of myself ever being like a person that enlightened things. And I think that's a really grandiose word, right? And I'm like, I would never ever say like, I am the enlightener. But she said that to me. And I said, you are here to enlighten. I said, you mean through, she's like, through your books, you are here to enlighten people.
Absolutely. Storytelling is one of the oldest way of enlightening. And the metaphor you hit on, you're like a transistor radio. The more we talk, because I needed to know where Henry came from. The more we talk, I think I know he wasn't in the house. I think Henry was outside, maybe by the glacial lake. Something happened there. And then when you came into this house with your husband, Henry was drawn in. That's what I think. You gave Henry a safe place to go.
Yeah, and he is also, like I said, it's my husband and myself, but we have had several guests here also that have also encountered things from Henry too. So he's very much like he just wants to also, usually when these things have happened to our guests, it's always something that's also sort of like connected to something that's going on in their lives. What happened to them, and they're like, oh, okay, and so I don't want to give away too much of that, because that is a major plot point that's in Servant. One of the things that happens to one of our guests is a major plot point.
People in any way on this show, we don't give it away. We just it. But, while we're dancing around it, I do have a question. The dogs, tell me what the dogs see. Animals.
Yeah, the dogs will all of a sudden will just get up in the middle of the night and start barking at something, or they'll run out of the room and run downstairs to get to something, and of course you could always say, well, there might be bears outside, or there might be some sort of animal. But I mean, there's been a couple of times when it happened with one of the dogs, and I was like, and it was really. They were quite loud about it and very specific. Like there was something threatening out there. So I turned on the lights outside. There was nothing there. I went outside and looked around to see if there was a bear or a coyote or whatever. There was nothing there. But there was clearly something that made her like go bark at that window. And she can't see anything because it was dark. It was at night. So there's nothing you can see. And we live in a neighborhood. There's no lights. There's no street lights. So there's no way she could see anything. So it's kind of like a couple of times there's been some things like that. And I think sometimes they also, sometimes I'll come downstairs and it looks like they've been playing with somebody all night long or something because they're exhausted. And I'm like, why are you so tired? You slept all night.
Maybe they haven't, Listen, it's a beautiful thing. You've given a home to Henry, which was great. Henry was lost. Now he's been found.
Mhm.
I'm curious. Your husband obviously supports you in
Mhm.
your writing. How much is your husband a part of this supernatural world?
In the book, the characters of Mitch and Buck are amalgams of both of us.
Are amalgams of both of you. So you've created Mitch and Buck after the two of you. Is your husband though as into it as you are, or he knows it exists and he supports you? That's my question.
Yeah, he knows it exists
He knows
because
it.
it's like just these things happen and we can't. There is no logical reason for them to happen. And again, I've never heard Henry. Matt is the only one who's ever heard him. So he like and that probably was the thing that freaked him out the most. Was like
He said hello to him.
he said hello to him.
Like just in like it, Hello, Matt.
And that makes it into Servant as well. That makes it the book, and that's not, again, that's just like and a culmination of all the things that happened to Mitch and Buck. That the spirit says hello to one of them one time, and they're like trying to figure out who said hello because there's nobody else in the house. That kind of thing. It was the same thing happened to him. No, he's very supportive of it. And when I told him, I said, I want to write this book, and I want to use the things that have happened in our home as the beginning that sort of set the whole thing. Once the psychic Gladys gets there and connects with the spirit, then it's all Patrick. It's all my imagination at that point. Everything that happens, including the Lenape character, Masingwa Medue, that is all in my head. But every single thing that happens to Mitch and Buck is based on something that has happened to either us or to our guests.
Wow.
So he was very supportive of that part. He had no idea about the rest of it. And it was funny because, again, as a burgeoning writer, I was sort of like, I don't even know the process of all this, how this all works, and I was like, and so I was always a little afraid to like have her be my beta readers. And so when the book actually finally came out and it was accepted, I gave it to him to read the whole thing, and he was on vacation. And so we do vacations up. He went to Cape Cod, I believe, with a friend of ours. And when he came back, I was very nervous about because this is not the kind of genre that he reads. He reads a lot of James Patterson. He likes, John Grisham and things like that.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, I think he was like, wow, I had no idea that, that you could write like this, or this, you did a beautiful job. Yeah.
Partner to do that though. I mean, the two of you together, he had no idea that you had that in you. And you're right.
Mhm.
He reads John Grisham, and yet he picks up your piece of writing and can say that.
Yeah, that was probably the most important critic, if you will. He's the most important critic, and he's read everything that I've put out. This new manuscript, I just sent it to my editor. I'm going to give it to him soon so he can read that as well. But Bedfordshire Warlock, I think he's waiting for it to come out in paperback so he can read it again. He's read it once before, and I'm sure he'll be like, after it goes through the copy editing process, and then after the editing process, it's a different book sometimes. And it's not just the grammatical things or the theme. There's a lot that can change.
But obviously you're working with an editor who gets who you are and what you're trying. I mean, you have to.
I have this lovely editor from Canada. I love her to death. Yeah, she's fabulous. And so, and she lets me be me, if you will. She lets me. She doesn't change anything important. Yeah.
It can only go that way. Now, I know you're influenced. You like Edgar Allan Poe.
Mm-hmm.
What other authors, like in the area of supernatural, rate?
Oh, I am a huge Anne Rice aficionado. I was crushed when she passed away last year, and that if I would say if there's any one book besides Edgar Allan Poe's early stuff like The Telltale Heart and The Raven, The Castle of Amontillado, all those things that influenced me when I was a kid, and that's what I read, by the way. Like, again, weird kid over here reading Edgar Allan Poe and everybody else is reading, but Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, I was
that's brilliant. Right.
Yeah. That to me was kind of like the book that really got me to like, that is the that is the ultimate for me.
Right.
She is the ultimate. Everybody else is going to be compared to her. Everybody.
Right.
And she did not disappoint, whether it was in the interview with the Vampire Chronicles or the Mayfair Witches. I was always so fascinated, even when she did her like sort of offshoot things, you know, the one with the werewolf for a while. I loved everything that she did. Another gentleman that I really enjoy, and he doesn't get anywhere near the kind of notoriety of his father, is a writer named Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. He is absolutely fascinating. Where Stephen King is very like, I like Stephen King. Joe Hill he'll take something and he will tear it apart and he will like remodel it into something that you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And that to me is very exciting. That's what I like to do. When my writing, I try to take something, again, like the old tropes, and invert it and put a new thing into it. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming. That kind of thing. I love that.
Can't wait to read this book. Now,
okay.
I got my 5-minute warning because I could be on here for another hour with you.
I could too.
Real quick, going into historical houses, you know, I'm looking on the weekends, the Columns in Milford is terribly haunted. I went to start my car there one night, and I have been warned that the Josephine likes to play tricks with people. My key fob did not work, and my car was dead. And the person that told me that came out, and they said to me, hold on a sec, and said, Josephine, let Wendy into her car, okay, and let her car work, please. And I went and I turned the car on, and it kicked over. It was a brand new rental. There was no reason for it not to work. But I have been warned by this person from the Columns that that kind of thing could happen. And people have seen Josephine in the window. Do you, when you go into these buildings, do you feel things? Can you really feel it?
I do. And it's not like I don't see things necessarily, but I do feel them. And one thing that that happened to me when I was a kid, and again, I'm going to give too much away because actually is creeping up another book. But I went into a historical house in Maine, and I was able to, I'd never seen something before, and I knew exactly what it was used for. And it was something that is not used in modern technology. It is a child who was like 10 or 11 years old would have no idea what it was. I knew, and the docent was talking about it, and she made a question, and I answered it. And I said, I know exactly what that's for, and I know how you do it, and I know where it goes, and all this sort of stuff. And she was just like, wow. Wow. Well, I think of that more as a connection to a past life. That was something that was a reverberation. I knew that. I don't know if that had anything to do with my passing or why that was such an important thing for me to know, but it was clearly something that I knew very easily. It was something I didn't have to think about. It just came like that. Yeah.
So we're like down to the wire here. Where can, first of all, people hear you speak? Where are you doing book signings? Please share that.
I actually have a tour coming up. And if you go to patrickfieldauthor.com, it's all one word, Patrick Field Author. I'm going to be posting for this next book for Bedfordshire Warlock. I'm going to be doing a whole like month of signings in June for Pride. And it's going to be, it's going to be mostly in the Northeast Pennsylvania area. I've made a couple of I've tried to get some places in Cape Cod, because this one takes place in a Salem, like Massachusetts area.
Oh my God, that's great, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to be able to have some signings there. We'll see how that works out, but I'm clearly going to be doing them here. I will be selling Servant as well, and but I'll be mostly pushing Bedfordshire. But that's what I'm planning on doing in June. And then, of course, I've got some of these book clubs coming up. So I'm very excited about talking about that. There it is, patrickfieldauthor.com.
And there you are. We got you up on the big screen. You got to let me know when you're coming to Milford.
I am.
Pennsylvania?
I will be posting all that. I'm still trying to iron out some details and things like that, but I'm absolutely going to be making Milford.
Great. I'm very excited for you, Patrick. I totally love what you're doing. I want to thank you for being on the show. I always wrap it up with a big happy smile. Cheese. One more. Great. Thank you. I wish you luck. Hopefully by the next time I see you, I will have read Servant at least.
Okay. I hope so too. I would love to hear what you have to say. And I'm one of those authors that's not afraid to hear when people give me negative or positive. I learn from.
But you know what? You already sucked me in on it. It's everything that I'm like interested in. So of course I'm going to love the book.
Okay.
I'm very excited to read it, and I know our book club at Triversity is too. Thank you so much, and I will see you around, as they say. Our paths will cross. And
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing the show tonight. Wishing you the best.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it was a lovely time. You have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.